Hello, my name is Brad Downey, and I'm going to walk you through a quick demo of how to detect drift in your infrastructure when using infrastructure as code. I've got a small example project here called Terraform Drift Detect. I'm using Terraform because it is a declarative language and tracks state of infrastructure. So basically, if you're not familiar with Terraform, you can ask it to compare the running infrastructure configuration to what you have in your code or your configuration files. So um, I've walked through other videos of how to deploy infrastructure using GitOps techniques and using GitLab and Git repositories as the single source of truth for infrastructure and infrastructure as code. Today is specifically going to be looking at the drift detection and understanding if there are any changes in the current infrastructure. So before I dive into this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a quick pipeline on the master branch. And what this is going to do is this is going to kick off a process here to validate my current configuration, do a plan, and then apply that configuration into production. So we're going to have GitLab and Terraform completely in sync with what the infrastructure looks like. So I'm going to go back to the project here, and we're going to look at the files while that's running. So my configuration files, I've got two Terraform files. They end in .tf. I've got a single backend file here. What this is doing is specifying the use of Terraform Cloud and as a remote repository. So we're going to store our infrastructure state files in the Terraform Cloud. And the second is what we're going to be actually configuring and changing. And I'm using a very simple example here with AWS Route 53 DNS service. I've got an entry called drift.getupsdemo.com, an A record with 8.8.8.8 is the value. So this is what my infrastructure should look like, and I'm going to run that and make sure that everything executes successfully. So if I go back over here, it looks like we're planning this. We're going to take a look at it. We can see in the job logs that that it's running through here, and it looks like we've got everything is succeeding. So we've done a plan, and now we're doing an apply. So we know that our infrastructure will be configured as the file specified. I want to look at one last thing here in the files. Let's look at the job configuration, the GitLab CI file itself. Starting at the top here, we're going to use HashiCorp's Docker image Terraform Lite. This is going to give us all the Terraform's going to be pre-installed with all the various different requirements. Before each job runs, I'm going to add curl to the container and run a Terraform version. So we have that in the job log. And then we're going to init to make sure that we prep the environment. Got 3 stages: validate, plan, and apply. So let's look at the validate stage. We're going to do a Terraform validate and a format check, and we're going to fail if that's if it's not formatted correctly. So we want to enforce good structure of our infrastructure as code or good formatting. When we do merge request, which is the proper way to make changes in the environment, we're going to run this specific job. It's going to run a Terraform plan and then output that into a particular file. And we're going to save that file as an artifact. And then we're also going to do a little API magic here to post the diff into the merge request. So this way, when you're reviewing changes, you understand, you can see right there in the comments posted on what exactly is going to change. This will help you make better decisions on whether to merge that code into master or not. Once it's merged into master, we'll actually do another plan and then an apply. We only apply for master because master should represent what is actually running in production. And it should always be the source of truth for what is running in your infrastructure. When you do feature branches, when you're planning changes, that's where you're testing out your code, making sure it's well formatted. Maybe it's being tested in a development environment, whatever. Um, but master should represent your production code. And then the last little bit here, which we haven't kicked off a job yet, but we'll take a look at, is this drift detection. So what we're going to do is we're going to do another Terraform plan. We're going to ask it to use an exit code to represent what the diff looks like, and we're going to save that to a file as well. So if it exits, if the Terraform plan exits with an exit code of 0, we're just going to print no changes found, and we're going to exit 0. That's what we're hoping for. If it exits with a 1, this is some error occurred, so we're just going to bubble that up and exit out. If it exits with a 2, that means changes in the configuration were found. That means we have drift. So we're going to say changes were found, and then we're going to put that into a message here and use the API to create and open an issue. So we're going to use the GitLab API to create a new issue and then alert users. So you can use standard GitLab alerting on new issues, Slack alerts, whatever management process you have. If you want to use something like PagerDuty, you can do that too. So we're only going to do this on schedules. So what does that mean? If I go to my CI/CD schedules here, I can see that I've got a single scheduled job to run. Let's open it up here. We're going to see that it runs every day at 4 a.m. or whenever I manually kick it off in US Pacific time zone. And I'm going to run that on the master branch. So let's take a look at my existing pipeline here. Looks like my pipeline succeeded. So let's take a look at my actual Route 53 console here, do a refresh, and I can see that my value here is 8.8.8.8, which is what I have in my code and what I expected. I'm going to do something naughty here and change the value directly in the infrastructure without updating my code. So I'm going to hit save there and go back. And I'm going to pretend like it's 4 a.m. here. Of course, we could set this to run more frequently if I want to catch drift sooner. I'm going to go back to my pipeline. See, I've got a new pipeline here running on the master branch, this time with only 2 jobs in it. So let's take a look at that. We've got the validate job, which is what I expect because I want to make sure that our code stays valid. And each night, reasons why this may fail or trigger would be a dependency or an infrastructure API might change. Things might change in the infrastructure, and our infrastructure's code might get stale or be invalid at some point. We want to catch that, and that should be slightly different than drift. We can combine these steps, but in my mind, I think we'll reuse this and just make sure that the code itself validates out and it meets current syntax and module requirements. So my validate step is running now. I'm going to jump over to that, or my drift job here. So we'll see that we started off by like the other ones, loading the Terraform Docker image with all the requirements. We're going to add curl in there because we need that later. Run our Terraform version. Whoops, it jumped on me. Run our Terraform version. And then we're going to do our Terraform plan with our detailed exit code here. And we'll see that it did detect a change here. It says, okay, 8.8.8.9 needs to go because that was configured directly in the infrastructure. My code says it's 8.8.8.8. My exit code exited correctly. Changes were found, and it's going to open an issue here. That was one issue before we started. And we're going to go back here and see that we've got a new issue here, updated just now, not this old one from my previous testing. an hour ago. So we're going to look at the new one here and see drift has been detected. Could see what the diff is, what's going to happen. We're not going to actually change anything at the moment. I didn't want to force the change on the schedule. Your infrastructure just changes. This is more of an alert to an administrator to go investigate. Why did it change? Why did it change in production? So this is going to be a scenario where you may want to, you may need to open a new merge request, make a change, edit the code, and have your infrastructure resynced with production. Now, you can either go change production to match your code, or my suggestion would be change your code and rerun your pipelines to revalidate and repush what you expect it to look like. So that's the end of my demo. That's how you detect drift using Terraform and GitLab CI/CD. Thank you.